NASA has done it all, from probes that have explored the farthest reaches of our solar system to manned capsules that have pushed the boundaries of our technology. Some of the most significant advances in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics have been made as a direct result of these missions. Welcome to Tech Heaven, and in this video we'll take a look at some of NASA's most exciting and noteworthy missions to date. Number 16. WMAP Satellite. Did you know we have a newborn picture of the early universe? We are unable to obtain photographs from the moment of the Great Boom. For the first few 100,000 years of the universe's existence, things were just too hot and too close together for photos to travel. Before the huge hydrogen clouds that filled the universe made it impossible to look beyond, you could only see a few light years in any given direction. However, after around 380,000 years, everything cooled and spread out, allowing the first light to escape. This light from the beginning of the universe falls to Earth from every direction in the sky. It is known as the cosmic microwave background radiation, and it depicts the universe in its early beginnings. Scientists have wanted to map out the CMB's hot and cold areas since its discovery to check if they match the experts' expectations. That information was not available until a few decades ago. Even yet, scientists didn't have a good HD image of the radiation until NASA's Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy probe was released. The probe's findings matched forecasts and verified that the universe was nearly totally uniform in temperature 14 billion years ago. It's incredible that we have this much information about something that existed a long time ago. The satellite was launched aboard the Delta II 742510 launch vehicle on June 30, 2001 at 3:46 p.m. EDT. WMAP performed its first observation of the CMB in April 2002. The first high-resolution photographs of the CMB, as well as publications explaining the data, were released in February 2003. WMAP research papers are among the most widely utilized and quoted in space scientific history. Number 15. Pioneer. Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 launched in 1972 and 1973 respectively, with the first spacecraft to visit Jupiter and Saturn, the solar system's most spectacular gas giants. Pioneer 10 was the first probe to traverse through the solar system's asteroid belt, which is a disk of objects circling between Mars and Jupiter. The spacecraft then conducted its first flyby of Jupiter around a year and a half after launch. It captured spectacular close-up images of the Great Red Spot and the planet's huge expanses of red. About a year later, Pioneer 11 sailed by Jupiter before moving on to Saturn, where it discovered two previously unknown tiny moons and a new ring. Both probes have finished transmitting data and are going on their one-way journeys beyond the solar system. Number 14. Viking 1 and 2. The United States had never successfully landed a probe on another planet before 1976. Parachutes and other similar equipment frequently failed, and the million-dollar machines sent to the Red Planet smashed into the surface while moving at thousands of miles per hour. It's difficult enough to get something into orbit around the Earth. It's even harder to leave Earth orbit, enter orbit around another celestial body, and successfully arrive on that planet. Nonetheless, the Viking probes accomplished this marvel of engineering. The twin vehicles were launched on Titan IIIe Centaur rockets within a month of each other, and the probes arrived as an orbiter-lander pair. Part of the vehicle was to remain in orbit around Mars, while the other was to land on the planet's surface. Scientists believe that life could not exist on Mars based on what they saw from Earth. However, because we had never arrived there, scientists didn't know for sure. When the Viking probes returned the first photographs and experiment findings to NASA, they proved them correct. The probes discovered no signs of little green guys or microbiological life. Number 13. Friendship 7. By early 1962, the United States had just over 30 minutes of space experience, and the clock was ticking down to the end of the decade. The United States had never sent a man into orbit, which was a vital component of sending men to the moon and beating the Soviets. That was to change with the launch of Friendship 7, the third Mercury mission from the United States. Lieutenant Colonel John Glenn, a military test pilot, was selected to launch the new Atlas rocket into orbit around the Earth. On February 20th, 1962, the rocket launched and successfully entered Earth orbit for about 5 hours. He landed safely some 1,300 kilometers south of Bermuda. The mission's objectives of testing the new rocket, learning how to orbit the Earth, and demonstrating that man could perform in space were met. Number 12. Spitzer. Spitzer Space Telescope, which examined the skies in infrared light, is another mission that has had a significant impact on cosmology and astrophysics. This light, which has a longer wavelength than visible light, is largely obstructed by the Earth's atmosphere. The telescope has made numerous groundbreaking scientific discoveries in addition to taking stunning photographs of galaxies, nebulae, and stars. Spitzer was the first telescope to detect light from extrasolar planets in 2005. In another finding, astronomers believe the telescope may have captured light from some of the universe's early stars. Number 11. Spirit and Opportunity. These hard-working Mars rovers, designed for a 90-day mission, have well exceeded their expectations and are still chugging away on the red planet more than 5 years after landing. The twin Mars exploration rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, arrived on the opposite sides of the planet in January 2004. They've been roaming all over the surface since then, prodding into craters and roving over undiscovered slopes. Among their significant discoveries is evidence that Mars once had liquid water on its surface. A particular thanks to NASA's Sojourner rover, which brought full-color close-ups of Mars in 1997, just as the internet was becoming enormously popular, earning a special place in the hearts of millions of people who had unparalleled access to NASA mission photographs. Number 10. Gemini IV. While the Mercury flights taught us the fundamentals of orbit, the Gemini missions demonstrated the skills required to travel to the moon. Spacewalking, or leaving the capsule and venturing into the vacuum of space, was one of the most significant activities on the moon. Because the US had never attempted this before, it was vital to rehearse before doing it on the moon. A USF test pilot named Edward H. White II was chosen to be the first American in space. On June 3, 1965, he and crewmate James McDewitt launched on a Titan II rocket. White's spacewalk lasted 36 minutes and was uneventful. The mission's objectives of assessing the long-term impacts of spaceflight and executing a spacewalk were met. The capsule did, however, land around 80 kilometers off course. Number 9. STS-1. NASA was looking for its next big thing after the success of the Apollo mission. The Space Shuttle was a reusable spaceship that landed like a glider and took off like a rocket. This rocket would launch experiments and satellites into orbit and could stay there for weeks. Several shuttles were to be built, with Columbia being the first to fly. The enormous rocket took off on April 12, 1981, and was piloted by John Young and Robert L. Crippen to an orbit of 166 nautical miles. The expedition lasted 2 days and 6 hours and was designed to extensively test the ship's systems. It glided down to Edwards Air Force Base in California for a landing. The shuttle and its tank were painted white at the time, rather than the iconic black, white, and orange. By the way, if you're watching us for the first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can enjoy our future videos while getting updated. Getting back to the scene, number 8, the ISS Missions. The Worldwide Space Station is a significant emblem of international cooperation. It took almost a decade to complete, with the Russians delivering the first module in the late 1990s. NASA space shuttles were critical components in the station's construction, transporting astronauts and building materials from around the world into orbit to work on the station. The first crews arrived in the early 2000s. The ISS is now orbiting at an altitude of more than 350 kilometers and traveling at a rate of more than 8 kilometers per second. At the time of writing, 2 Americans and 1 Russian were aboard the station. Number 7. Cassini-Huygens. This NASA-ESA spacecraft was launched in 1997 and arrived at its destination, Saturn, in 2004. Since then, it has been in orbit around the ringed planet, taking spectacular images of the planet's rings, moons, and weather. Huygens split from Cassini and traveled to Titan, where it plummeted through the atmosphere and landed on solid ground in 2005. Despite the fact that earlier spacecraft have visited Saturn, Cassini is the first to orbit it and investigate the system in depth. Number 6. Chandra. The Chandra X-ray Observatory has been scanning the skies in X-ray radiation since 1999, searching for some of the most distant and strange celestial occurrences. Because most X-rays are blocked by the Earth's atmosphere, astronomers couldn't see the universe in this high-energy, short-wavelength light until they sent Chandra into space. Because of its high-resolution mirrors, the observatory can view X-ray sources 100 times fainter than any prior X-ray telescope. Among other firsts, Chandra discovered the remnant Cassiopeia A, which provided astronomers with the first look of a crushed star left over from a supernova. Number 5. Voyager 1 and 2. The Voyager probes, launched in late summer 1977 atop a Titan Centaur rocket, were destined for encounters with the 4 undiscovered giant planets of the outer solar system: Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. Over the course of a decade, the probes examined these worlds. Voyager 1 is currently in interstellar space, while Voyager 2 is in their heliosheath. The heliosheath is the outer region of the heliosphere, a bubble formed by the solar wind encircling the planets. Voyager is the farthest distant man-made object in history, orbiting Earth at a distance of more than 20 billion kilometers. Both probes are equipped with a phonograph record that contains a message from Earth to any alien civilization that may intercept a spaceship as it travels through interstellar space for billions of years. Even after all these years, the probes are still transmitting data. However, as they get further and further away from Earth, they will most likely cease to do so. Number 4. Curiosity. Curiosity, the Martian rover, launched on an Atlas V rocket in late 2011, contained some of the most complex scientific instruments and systems yet built. In August 2012, the rover successfully landed thanks to an innovative landing technology. Curiosity plummeted as though by parachute. The parachute was deployed just before touchdown, and the rover landed using rockets. The rover's objective is to follow up on the Viking missions and discover whether Mars ever had the right circumstances for the microbial life to thrive. Curiosity had discovered some evidence that Mars formerly supported microscopic life, but the experiment is still underway. Number 3. Hubble. The Hubble Space Telescope is the most well-known of all NASA spacecraft, with a name that is known all over the world. Its photographs have altered how ordinary people perceive themselves in relation to the cosmos. The observatory has also dramatically altered science, resulting in far too many advancements on astronomical concerns to count. NASA devised a technique that might display stars, planets, nebulae, and galaxies in all their full detailed splendor by finally sending up an optical telescope to stare at the sky from beyond Earth's turbulent atmosphere. Number 2. Apollo 8. President John F. Kennedy's objective of placing a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s was rapidly approaching its expiration date. With just over a year till the end of the decade, NASA was moving at a breakneck speed. Apollo 8 was the first manned spacecraft to depart from Earth orbit and head for the moon. If they had missed, they would have remained in space indefinitely. They would have collided with the moon if they got too close, speeding at several kilometers per second. The mission was launched on December 21st, 1968 on the Saturn V, the most powerful rocket ever built. On Christmas Eve, 1968, Apollo 8 successfully reached lunar orbit. The crew famously aired a holiday TV show in lunar orbit as the Earth rose above the moon. It was broadcast live to all 7 continents. After the 10th lunar orbit, Apollo 8 returned to Earth and landed safely on December 27th in the Pacific Ocean. Number 1. Apollo 11. The 1969 moon landing by Apollo 11 is by far the best known and most monumental NASA mission, and it is arguably the greatest triumph of human technology in global history. The crew of Mike Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and Neil Armstrong started the mission on July 16, 1969. The launch and lunar orbital insertion went off without a hitch, and hundreds of millions of people saw it live on television. The spacecraft was divided into two sections: Columbia, the command module that would remain in orbit around the moon, and Shuttle, the man back to Earth, and Eagle, the lunar module that would land on the moon. On July the 20th, the spacecraft descended to the moon's surface. Armstrong was responsible for landing the Eagle on the lunar surface, as over 500 million people on Earth watched the event on television. The descent was difficult because the selected landing place was surrounded by big boulders. It was a risky place for a touchdown. Armstrong had only seconds of fuel left when he placed the lunar module on the moon's surface, roughly 6.4 kilometers from the targeted landing site. Armstrong famously said, "The Eagle has landed," as he turned off the engine and the vehicle settled into the lunar dust. During multiple lunar missions, the two men collected rocks, conducted experiments, spoke with the president, and memorably planted and saluted the US flag. They walked on the moon for more than 20 hours in all. Their craft successfully returned to Earth a few days later, laying the framework for 5 more lunar missions in the near future. And with that being said, it's time to end our video. Which of these successful NASA missions do you think made a revolution in space science? Let us know in the comments. Like this video and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos like this. We'll see you in the next video.